Howdy, folks. Happy Tuesday. We are back. We're going to talk about the teams that are going to be buyers in the NHL, but we're going to start off with some talk about a couple games before that, but we'll start the pre-show with my observations of the national championship game. And I have to tell you beforehand, I'm not a big college football guy. If anything, I think I watched a quarter of Ohio State, Michigan, and then I watched last night. And other than that, I haven't watched any college football. I don't have a team. I'm not a big fan. But it gave me immense pleasure. You know, it was Schadenfreude. I immense pleasure out of seeing Nick Saban lose. It was beautiful, Peter. I loved it.
Yeah, I you like dynasties, but there's too many teams in college football to have a dynasty. There's too many, you need to spread the talent around. You need something better. And you know what? I just, every time I hear Roll Tide, I throw up a little in my mouth. So, I don't, Claret was Clemson. I was kind of more hoping for Oklahoma, but whatever. Hey, Saban losing, but also just getting his ass handed to him. That was the best part.
I'll give you the small take I have. It's not even on the game. It's on guys like Saban. Lou Holtz was the first coach that I ever knew of that just quit on his team when he was the Jets coach. And then he becomes a legend in Notre Dame, right? But he quit in the NFL. And Nick Saban did the same thing. He quit in the NFL, and he's like a legendary coach in college. And this is what I don't like about college football is some of these coaches know how to control the players when they're college players, but then when they're pros, they can't, and that's when they can't coach anymore.
Because they control their scholarships, they can control everything. And in the NFL, it's like you threaten somebody. It's like I'm making $1 million. I don't give a crap what you. The only thing I have to say is I was glad Notre Dame didn't get there because I've always hated Notre Dame, and I said that, and Jan was like, it was a personal affront to Jan because Jan's a Notre Dame fan, but yeah, it's going to be a couple years down the road, but the quarterback that won yesterday for Clemson, he's a not a redshirt freshman, but an actual freshman, a 19-year-old. So he's not eligible for the NFL draft for another 2 years. I swear to God, Russ, if this kid could come out now, he'd be the top pick in the draft because, he's 6'6".
He decided, I guess he didn't like the landscape, which means the team's up top, so he decided to stay in, right? I think that's what the deal was. He didn't say that, but that's usually the case.
Well, no, he can't. There's an NFL rule that he cannot come. He can't come out.
Too young. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
There's another quarterback though that's staying in that could have come out this year.
The Oregon quarterback. Yeah,
okay,
but
that's what I'm getting.
The Ohio State one is coming out. So because he could actually be the number one pick in the draft. I don't know a lot about him, but but no, it's just if this kid, he's 19 years old, if he was eligible, he would come out. But the only thing is, and Russ, you'll know this is an age-old reference. I look at this guy with his long flowing hair, and he's 6'6", and first of all, if you ever see the movie Remember the Titans, he looks like the kid Sunshine, who was the quarterback in that movie. So. But he also looks like Todd Marinovich.
Oh yeah. Or he's a Facebook friend. Todd's a Facebook friend.
Or as he was called when he was a quarterback for the Raiders, Todd Marijuanovich.
Yeah, but he had a lot of talent, Todd. He did.
I
don't want to take that back. It's true for the nickname, though. It is.
No, it is true. That was what he was called, and he was a first-round pick. And anyway. All right, let's get to hockey here. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, January 8th, 2019.
I'm Peter Tessier in Winnipeg. Sorry, just dealing with something on my phone. I was paying attention.
I'm Russ Cohen.
My bad.
What's that, Russ?
I was going to say I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, but Peter was still going. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, apologizing. There we go. Let's just get this right. Okay.
I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Now, there were a few games last night. It wasn't a heavy night in the league. Usually Monday nights are not heavy, but there was a couple interesting matchups. And first, Russ, we'll talk about the one that you were at, which was the Blues and the Flyers. And first of all, these are two teams that we talked about yesterday that we put in the seller category, and there were a sizable amount of scouts at that game. And obviously, If you're talking about the Flyers, you're talking about Wayne Simmons, maybe Gostisbehere, maybe Gudis, maybe a couple other players. And the Blues, I mean, everybody from Tarasenko to Parayko to Pietrangelo to Braden Shen, all these names have been out there. But let's start with Jordan Binnington, who made his NHL debut, and I think he's the first rookie goaltender since Garrett Sparks to shut out in his first NHL career start.
Yeah, it was a nice start. I mean, it wasn't the most challenging of shutouts. I mean, I would only say the Flyers had 5 or 6 really quality chances, but he did the right thing. He was hugging the post. He was clearing it safely with a stick. He was very calm. And after the game, he sort of doesn't want to rock the boat because he had told Adam Kimmelman, who I spoke to before the game, that like he realized at one point he just sort of woke up in the ECHL. Like all of a sudden he's in the ECHL. What am I doing in the ECHL? How did I get here? And that's what happens sometimes in an organization when you have a goalie like a Jake Allen who they are totally sold on, even if he's not the guy. And then they want to keep marinating you in the AHL, really hoping that you'll be that next guy, but then you can't be a starter and they want you to play. And then before you know it, you're in the AHL for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And now it seems like he might have a chance to break through finally.
And they have another young goalie in Husso
yeah.
So I mean, him going to the ECHL, I know this from the Leafs and from other organizations. That means you're probably the number 3 goalie in the organization because they want you to play every day. They don't want you to be the backup in the AHL.
No, but actually the Bruins probably rehabbed his image because he was loaned to Providence last year,
right,
and had a very good year, and that really helped him. So because again, we talked about that shared affiliation thing. It's horrible for goalies,
sure.
But in this case, him going to a good team like that, I think helped him, and he's got his confidence. And I hope he gets the next start and the next start. I don't want him to get 6 starts in a row. We know about that.
Now let's talk about what we talked about last night. Guys like Parayko, guys like Pietrangelo. I mean, we know with Pietrangelo, we know what he is. He's a top defenseman. Yeah. He's a right-hand shot.
Never try. The thought of trading him would be inconceivable. I don't know why. Well, I don't think it'll happen.
I agree, but the thing is whether they are going to be willing to pay the price to sign him to the long-term extension. They're not, you're talking probably and he's 28 or 20. I think he's 28 going on 29.
Yeah.
He's a year away from UFA, and he's a top pairing guy, and he's not over the hill. So you're talking $8.5 million, and he's probably not talking about a short-term deal. He's probably talking about a 7 or 8 year deal. So that's the determination that St. Louis has to make, is whether they want to sign that guy or reap a great return on a deal before the deadline. But you had observations about Parayko, and
I do want to say first though, if you lose Pietrangelo, really, your best rookie prospect, and he's not that young, so that's good, is Perinovich. But again, you're not going to throw him in the NHL. He's only 20, right. So it's going to take him a couple of years at least. After that, they're thin. And that's why even the loss of Parayko is not going to be great for them, but they are going to lose one. I mean, they're going to lose Bouwmeester, which I think is a good thing, actually, because I didn't even notice Jay Bouwmeester last night. But Parayko, like, he's out there, he's moving the puck all right. Through 2 periods, he only had like 3 hits and 1 block, though. And that, to me, is alarming because he used to be a guy that hit more and blocked more.
Right.
And so he just didn't seem engaged enough. And maybe this is the problem with him this year. Maybe he has been too much of a floater. At least Pietrangelo, I remember, had at least 1 assist in that game. Boy, St. Louis is a decent team, though. That's the weird thing. I know Flyers fans like to think they're a pretty good team and they're playing bad. No. St. Louis, when you watch them, they actually could control the puck and really do some things even the Flyers can't do. But the goaltending has clearly derailed their system to this day. Maybe they'll get it back. Maybe.
Well, Peter, this is the thing that puzzles me because, even from the beginning of the year when we had Kevin on and the name of Parayko was out there and Ak was talking about it and other people were talking about it, and you look at the size of the player, you look at what he's done previously, and you look at, he's under contract for, I think, another 3 years at 5.5, and you shake your head and say, why the hell is this guy available? And after what Russ said, now you know why he's available.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think when you're St. Louis and you fired your coach and you brought in the guy from down the, up the highway, from Minnesota after you let Ken Hitchcock go, you go through all this stuff, you sign deals, you bring it, you trade out guys, you do all these moves and nothing's working. Anything is on the table because you're now a team that is slightly lost. And whether you're lost because of the GM or you're lost because of the coach or you're lost because of the players, you got to start finding something. So the way you find yourself is you start making deals. And that's why you see these names out on available for a whole host of reasons. I like when it comes to Tarasenko, I think he can't take him off the table until you realize that no one's going to pay what's right for him. Because the problem is everyone wants to buy in a down year, right? You're buying, buy low, sell high.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they'd be selling low, and someone's got to give them the right value for it. But he has to be on the table. You can't.
I don't know about that. I don't think he has to be. I scoff at that simply because when you watch him play, and last night was a great example. There were plays where there was two guys trying to get the puck from him. They can't. He still makes a great pass.
Yeah, but Russ,
hold on.
It's not playing great against the Flyers isn't some.
No. But you do this against other teams.
Yeah,
it's not his fault if he makes passes and they don't come back to him to score. That's not his fault.
But this is the problem. The problem is not what he does on the ice. I mean, from what I've heard in terms of reports about Tarasenko, it's off the ice issues, not like that he's detrimental to the team, but it's like, not buying in, he had problems with Hitchcock. He had problems with Yo. It's like, okay, well, if the guy is your highest paid forward making $7.5 million, he's your key offensive piece and he's not buying into what coach is there. That's a problem. You know what though?
I watched him out in the game, after the game, in the hallway. He was chatting up hockey way after I left with another player. You know what this is? This is just a situation where sometimes there's players that bitch. But at the end of the day, when he's on the ice, he plays. Not everybody's going to fall in line the way you want him to as a coach or whatever. There are plenty of players. You go look at some of these teams, they end up being outlaw teams, right? Because there's guys on the teams that are just abrasive. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's what's happening here. I just think he's having a down year, so the whispers start. But this guy is a top player in the league.
I'm not disputing that he's not a top player, but there's a value judgment going on here. If you can move, as Peter said, if you can move him for what he's actually worth, then I think it's a move maybe worth investigating. If you're getting pennies on the dollar, of course you don't trade him.
You absolutely can't get his worth. This is a guy who's almost got 200 goals. At the age of, and he's 27. He's going to get his 200th goal this year. Yeah. How many of those guys are out there? Seriously.
Well, okay. The other one is Braden Shen, and this one I think is more. If you look at where he is now, they acquired him.
He scored last night simply because we were talking about him.
They acquired
the hockey rule.
They acquired him in a deal with the Flyers. It was Laterra and a couple first-round picks. It's turned out pretty good for the Flyers because they got Morgan Frost and Farabee with the picks that they had. Shen's got another year at 5.1. He's a good player, but the question is, do they see a future there? And if they don't see a future there in terms of re-signing him and keeping him there, then it might be a guy who you can move and you can get value for and can help another team in a particular situation. So what did you see out of Shen yesterday?
I mean, look, he scored a goal. It was one of those juicy rebounds in the slot, and he is very good at picking those up. Beyond that, I saw a guy who falls behind the play skating-wise. He is just NHL average skating enough to know that he needs to pick up like the last guy because he can't get to the first guy because he's not fast enough. And if there's a break, he's got to be that guy who ends up at the top of the corner because he barely makes it over onside when the other guys are streaking down the ice. He was – I think last night it was him, Tarasenko, and Schwartz. I think that's –
yeah, Schwartz had one of the goals, yeah.
Right. And so – those other two guys are like really too fast for him. But can he still play? Sure. He's got good hands. He definitely, if you put him in the middle on the power play, he could score you goals. There's no question about it. And that's probably his best use. But, when I floated it online, I don't think Bruins media really wants him there because they know he is just a year or two away from being David Backes, which was a bad deal because he's not.
Yeah, but the only difference is that he's not locked up for 6 years.
But you're locked up for another year of that. Next year may be a bad year for Braden Shen. This year has already not been a great one, but you might get something out of him in the playoffs. Next year could be the bad one, though.
It all depends on what Boston or whatever interested team.
I would make him a winger. I would definitely not make him a center. He is still pretty good at faceoffs. I did see that, but just because of the speed factor, if you shake him loose on the wing, maybe a little better. But still, he is a guy that's such a marginal skater. In two years, it wouldn't shock me if he falls off the map.
Now, Peter, I want to ask you about a team that you're well aware of and probably an expert on, and that's the Nashville Predators, because you see them so often. And they played the Leafs last night, and they schooled the Leafs 4-0. The score is a little misrepresentative of it was a tight game up until like late in the third with a couple goals. I mean, actually, Michael Hutchinson played pretty good for the Leafs. He was not responsible for the loss. The responsibility was the fact that Nashville got up 1-0, and after the Leafs had a goal overturned by an offside. I
saw the highlight of that this morning. Ooh.
Yeah, and it was William Nylander, who's now the magnet for controversy and criticism, and we'll talk about that later on. But Nashville simply cut off the Leafs offense. They cut off the stretch pass again. Then we have now a book on the Leafs, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Nashville successfully shut down the middle. And their top 4D of Subban, Yossi, Ekholm, Ellis closed off any kind of entry into the offensive zone, standing up at the blue line. They're mobile enough to get to the dump ins when the Leafs did do that, which they usually don't like to do because they can't win puck battles in the offensive zone. And they got 2 goals and 3 assists from their blue line. I said this on Twitter. You want to know what a team with a good top 4 looks like? Look at the Nashville Predators. They got more than that, but that's
Nashville's a funny team because there's times when they just sync up, and when they do, they're deadly. They're absolutely deadly, but they're not always in sync, and they haven't been playing great hockey for the last little while. They're a beatable team, and what has to happen is you have to have the players and the talent to disrupt. You got to use your zone starts very well against Nashville. Yeah. Like if you get an offensive zone start, you've got to get them chasing a bit. So you have to have a group of forwards that can do that. But you also have to have the right ones that can go in and get the puck, because their defense is so good at moving it. So if you can do that kind of disruption, but you can do it with more than your top 2 lines, you can have success against them.
Right.
But it's not easy to do. And I think one of the things that also happens with Nashville is some of their top guys like to get a little individual and play. They like to sort of try and take over a game. They get a little frustrated. They deviate away from Lavi's sort of tactical system. So again, I mean, I know them a lot from last year in the playoffs, but we've only seen them. The Jets have only played them once this year in Nashville, and it was a 3-0 loss. So, I mean, that was Nashville's game 7 for them. They came out like gorillas out of a cage, as Brizgalov would say. Like it was, I mean, that meant everything for them to get revenge. Well, but
I think Nashville is the team Winnipeg wants to be, this version of them when they grow up. Like if Winnipeg could play their best, they would be playing like Nashville right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think I think if Winnipeg could play the defense the way they do, that's what they'd really like to do, is have that defensive
like
system.
Rene's back at the top of his game. We're all shocked at this.
He was great. He was great last night.
And he is really, again, I spoke to somebody in the Nashville organization recently about Rene, saying, I am truly impressed what he has been able to do this year, because last year I was thinking this is his last year in Nashville and he's getting a little older, and this person was like, yeah, he's really been great and he's changed it up.
And they said,
he has changed it up.
And they signed him to an extension, which was and for a reasonable amount. So, he's going to be around for at least another couple of years. But let me just say this. I mean, the book right now, it's the halfway mark. There's no disputing how well the Leafs have played right now. But the adjustments made by other teams are indicative of what's going to happen in the second half. I mentioned it in my column against Minnesota, against the Islanders, against a couple other teams recently. They're shutting down the stretch pass. They're closing up the middle. Nick Foligno made a comment when they played Columbus about how weak the Leafs were below the hash marks. Teams are forechecking their defense, which is not deep. So these are all on the power play. People realize Morgan Riley is a very good power play quarterback who manages the puck well, passes it well, but he doesn't have a big shot from the point. They realize the center of the offense on the power play is Matthews and Marner on the half boards, and they're collapsing their penalty killing box. Yeah. So when the pass goes to Marner or Matthews, the top guy on the box flares out and cuts them off immediately. They're like 1 for like the last 26 on the power play, and this is with Tavares, Marner, Matthews, Kadri, and Riley. This is not going to be a problem for them against a team like Vancouver who can't play that type of shutdown defense. But like teams like Boston, Tampa, Nashville, they can't beat them right now if they do that stuff effectively.
You know what's funny? What they could do, and it's going to sound a little crazy, but they could do this. They could put Riley and Ron Hainsey on the power play because Ron Hainsey actually could get a shot on net still at this age very well. And maybe that would take the heat off of Riley. That may be a way to do it because they're going to have to change something up with what they've got right now.
So
go ahead.
Just I just want to go back to Nashville a little bit. I think one of the things that I think people got to watch with Nashville is Pekka Rinne's right at the cusp of where he was last year in terms of games played. And he's trending right to about the 60 games. He played 59 last year, and then he was oops, hang on, I got playoffs up.
This is with him having an injury. They played Saros.
Yeah, exactly. 59, then 61, 66, 64. So it's if I'm Laviolette and I'm Nashville, I'm thinking very carefully about how much I need to use him coming down the pipe. Because Rinne's only gotten his team out of the playoffs, out of the second round once.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at their playoff summary, he started every game. And so it goes back, let's say 2009, 6 games and out. 2011, they lost to Vancouver in 6. 2012, out in 10 games. He was
he's the go-to guy.
He's the go-to guy. But he's an older guy, and he's played a lot of hockey. And, age 36, it's –
well,
I'm just thinking
the problem is Peter,
do they need to start giving him some rest on the stretch, and can they win with Saros?
Well, yeah, and that's the plan.
It seems like it.
Right. I mean, that's the delicate balance here. They're 1 point up on Winnipeg. Winnipeg has 3 games in hand.
Yeah.
If say for the last month and a half of the season, you alternate and you go Saros, Rinne, Saros, Rinne every other game, give Rinne a break going into the playoffs, you might be signing off first place and home ice advantage. So that's the delicate balance. Maybe you get him rest where you can, but I mean, it's the same dilemma with Toronto with Anderson. I mean, when he comes back, you simply cannot play him as much as you've been playing him in the past. It wore him down in December. He had a groin injury. He kept playing through the groin injury.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing too about Nashville. Now, after this year's World Juniors, don't even bring up Eeli Tolvanen this year. When people jumped on me when I said, I thought Finland needed a sniper, and they said, well, they've got Tolvanen. Well, he didn't score a goal. And something has gone a little bit wrong. Maybe he's just a little bit rushed. So now I think he needs to earn it more in the AHL, and I would not bring him up this year, and I don't think he will make the team next year. He's only 19. He's going to have to sit a while and learn how to really figure it all out because just having a great shot's not enough anymore.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the buyers. And we'll start in the East like we did yesterday. Tampa Bay. I mean, they're so good right now. I don't know whether they really need to make an addition, but I think that they will. Russ, in my estimation, if they do make an ad, it's probably going to be on the blue line because even though they have Hedman and McDonough, they have some age there with Girardi and Coburn. They have some youth there with Sergachev. I think they could use one more defenseman, and if they got that, I think they're really tough right now. I think they're favorites to come out of the East, but I think that's where they would probably go. What do you think?
Yeah, if I'm the Rangers, I call them and say, hey, I'll give you Adam McQuaid and a third for Slater Cuckoo. Let's do that.
Right. Well, and and they seem to not be sold on Slater Cuckoo, or he's basically like a seventh guy who keeps coming in and out.
Or he's getting the Jake Dotson treatment, however you want to call it.
Yeah. And I was a little surprised a couple weeks ago when he was put on waivers that somebody didn't claim him, unless the word is spread about something, character-wise with him. I thought somebody would pick him up because a couple of years ago he looked like he was a defenseman who would at least be a solid bottom pairing guy.
I think it's the conditioning, Mike. I think next year someone will pick him up.
Okay. Washington, the problem with Washington is cap space. They really don't have any. There's talk about them shopping Andre Burakovsky, and I think his cap hit is in the $2 to $3 million range. So it might be a deal where they move him out and they move somebody else in. But I don't know if I see them making much of a change from that roster because they did win a Stanley Cup with them.
Yeah, if I'm the Flyers, I hope to catch the GM of the Capitals in a George McPhee moment and make a Martin Erat trade. And so, like, if I'm the Flyers, I say, hey, I'll give you Michael Raffle for Andre Burakovsky, and Raffle will help them this year in the playoffs, like he would.
Yeah,
and that's what I would offer him.
Now, Peter, I love Russ. Pittsburgh. I mean, they've started to turn it around. It's been about a month. They seem to be getting back to the Pittsburgh that we know. Matt Murray is straightened out. I continue to think that if they address an area, it's going to be the blue line. They're not. Letang is healthy, but I don't think he's the Letang of old. Mata, Dumoulin. I think they need another blue line. Jack Johnson. I think they need another blue liner more than they need help up front. They did add Tanner Pearson. If they could get somebody relatively cheap, I would say that they would add a forward. But I think that more than likely, if they're going to make a big ad, it's going to be on the blue line.
Yeah, but I think the part of the problem is they're going to have to ship some salary out. They don't have any cap space right now. The projected trade deadline space is it's $5 million. It's not terrible, but if
enough at the deadline, actually.
What's that?
I mean,
it's enough of the deadline. Yeah, prorate is enough of the deadline.
And what they can do is if it's a team that's out of it, they can get them to retain.
I think Pittsburgh's in that funny little area where you maybe have to hope to find value and not go for a home run, because I don't know if they can afford to keep giving up a first round to get what's really going to fix them or help them. I think that's an organization that has to really think about what you're going to keep adding to the pipeline. And I know the debate around 20, if you end up being a 25th pick or below, you might as well just be picking in the second round. And that's all fine. And they have a second round pick, but at some point you have to keep having some push come in from the bottom, and you need to replenish the coffers because they're always spending. So it'll be interesting to see where, if they get the green light to dive in and really go. But I mean, blue line, they need some help there, but it's not impossible. That's for sure.
Here's what I would do. If I were them, because Zach Aston-Reese has been sort of elevated and I think proving himself a bit more, maybe you trade Riley Sheahan for that defenseman, and he could get you somebody because he's still a decent center. He could play you fourth.
Although the thing is, Brassard is a UFA, and
so Sheehan.
Yeah, but so Sheehan too. And Brassard, they can't do anything about. They've got to keep him. Like this, they're going to live with Brassard and hope that he produces like he did with the Rangers in the playoffs, which is unlikely, but they're hoping. With Sheehan, you could get him to a team that thinks they can maybe re-sign him, and I think there'll be a team out there who'd be interested. As an example, if you trade him to someone like even if you traded him to Anaheim, you could get one of their lower level defensemen, and maybe that would be fine. You don't have to get a star, like you said.
No, but I to Peter's point, I mean, you're right that most franchises are, going to be looking to, we can't sell the future continuously, but I think Pittsburgh is in that sort of win now mode like Chicago was, where they've got Malkin, they've got Crosby, they've got Letang, they've got Kessel for another, probably another year until they maybe trade him in the summer. Yeah. It's a win now scenario, and it's like, okay, our window is going to close. We may take 1-2 more chances at it, and then we're probably going to go through a span of 4 or 5 years where Crosby and Malkin are in decline, and they're not going to win. So they got to strike while the iron is hot. So that might be what's in. I mean, they're not going to. You have to keep developing, you have to keep drafting, but you have to also, if you have a chance to win, trade what you can afford to trade to be able to add the pieces that you need to win. So I mean, that's where I think they're
and you trade, and because these two teams have traded before, maybe you trade Riley Sheehan for Jake Dotchin and hope that the change of scenery for Dotchin with some of your players gets them some more points.
Yeah, I just think they need a defenseman better than Dotchin. I think
I mean, we always say that, but they really don't. They just need another player. They just need another player. I don't think it has to be a spectacular defenseman.
No, we won't waste a ton of time on Toronto because we talk about them constantly. But I mean,
we don't talk about Toronto that much.
But yeah, okay. But their needs are clear. They need it. They definitely need. Get ready, Russ. They definitely need a top 4D.
Take a drink.
I think they also need a depth defenseman because God forbid that one of their defensemen goes down. That puts Martin Marincin in their top 6, and that's a playoff killer right there. I do think they could use some help up front in terms of size. I mean, we heard Babcock say yesterday, I wish my team would play heavier. Well, the problem is you don't have heavy players. You don't have, I mean, Zach Hyman and a couple other guys will go into the corners and win the battles, but you have a lot of skill and you don't have heavy players. And
okay, I'm going to tell you something about
Freddie Gauthier being 230 pounds doesn't mean he's heavy.
Right. I'm going to tell you something. There was definitely some talk in the press box yesterday, and I heard that heavy conversation going on, and I heard one scout say, yeah, those were the old days. Like, there were some teams that built up with that heavy lineup, and those are the ones that are suffering now. And you know who those are. Those are like the Kings and teams that just found themselves too slow again overnight because they built themselves up with guys like that worked it for a while.
You're right, but you can't have a preponderance of those type of players. But Russ, Austin Watson was pushing around people for the
it's a delicate balance. It really is. And if I'm going to have a big heavy player, he better be able to skate, or I don't want him.
Agreed, but I think they need 1 or 2 players like that. So I mean,
Mike, here's the news flash. They're very hard to find.
I agree. Maybe
they should have picked up Alex Chason when he was out there 100 times.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, there are going to be guys out there who are expiring contracts that they may have to consider, making a deal for, because I think that they need that type of player. I mean, Kyle Dubas apparently is in Russia right now. He's scouting their second round pick from a couple years ago, Igor Korshkov. He may be checking out some European, Russian free agent defensemen. But one of the things I think he might, I'm just tying things together here. Korshkov was supposed to come over last year. He didn't. He's supposed to come over this year. If they trade some of their prospects down in the AHL, they're making sure they find out this guy is coming over because, he's got somebody who they want to develop and eventually get to the NHL. So I think they're sort of putting their ducks in a row, and they're going to make a couple deals before the deadline. It's just a question if they make the deals that I think that they need to make, because Peter, honestly, right now they're on a track to probably get 110 to 112 points and lose in the first round of Boston, because I don't see how they beat Boston the way Boston is and the way the Leafs are right now.
I don't. Yeah. I mean, look, we've gone through this so many times in so many different ways, but Morgan Rielly's having a Norris caliber season. I haven't heard much about Zaitsev. I don't know where he's sitting in terms of his value.
If you ask the analytics crowd, they hate him. He's top 10 in the league in block shots.
Yeah.
And he is serving a role that he is not suited for. The guy scored over 30 points in his rookie year. Yeah. And once they got him signed to the long-term contract, I think they told him basically, we need you to be more of a defensive defenseman. Yeah. It doesn't suit his game, but that's what he is.
Jake Gardiner being Jake Gardiner. Ron Hainsey is well, he's doing whatever Babcock sets him up to do.
Right.
And then it just kind of goes downhill, right? Like it just doesn't fit. And if the Leafs are going to have some improvement, that's where it's got to start. And they've got mounds of deadline cap space. They've got to and yes,
what the fear is for me. The fear is that they rush Rasmus Sandin because they keep him around with the Marlies. And
I think the Leafs
not this year, at least. Not this year.
I don't think
we say that for one more injury, Mike, and you never know. We said that about Carter Hart. You never know.
No,
I think if you're the Leafs and you just let's just think, we know what they need. They need a top 4 right D. So you find out who's got one, and then you find out and who's willing to trade one. So okay, Carolina, but go down through the list of things and you think, who wants to deal with them? Because you know what you're doing by setting them up, right? Like where the problem is. So if it's an expiring contract, that's okay. That's a different thing. But if someone with term, because the Leafs have assets to trade, you're now making someone in the East a rival. Even if you're in different conferences, you're still making them a rival who you're going to have to play against. So the price for the Leafs, because they're that close, is probably going to be a little high. And if you want someone who's a top flight name with an expiring contract, I think your benchmark thing is what the Jets had to pay for Stasny last year. It's going to be a first rounder, and it's going to be a key prospect, and it's going to be maybe something else depending on.
Here, you know what the problem is? Carolina doesn't want to pay the salary of a Stasny. They won't do it.
No, I know. I'm not saying Carolina does.
No, it makes it harder.
Right. No, I know that. I'm just saying the Leafs are acquiring this, Russ. So
I thought you said Carolina now.
No, not Carolina. So I think if you're looking for anyone that's probably going to come out of the West, and I mean, again, if he's healthy, I wouldn't be surprised to see them take a look at Tanev.
Yeah.
I think, and Frank, I mean, no one's going to take anything from Edmonton, but I mean, is there a way to do something? I mean, there's a movement amongst Jets Twitter right now is to find a way to get Muzzin out of LA to Winnipeg. I mean, I don't know how that happens, but I'm sure that's the same thing's happening in Toronto.
Right. There's been talk about them without, but then let me just make this point and then we'll move on from Toronto. You look at the top 3 in each division in the entire NHL. So that's Tampa, Toronto, Boston, Washington, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Nashville, Winnipeg, Colorado, and Calgary, Vegas, and San Jose. I think the Leafs of those 12 teams have the worst of the 12 defenses. The worst in terms of talent.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm going out
like the group. They don't play the worst of those guys, though.
No, they don't play the worst, but I'm saying in terms of talent.
I know, but you can't go by that. You got to go by the collective group, what they do on the ice. That's what I go by.
Okay, so just 2 more teams in the East, then we'll go to the West. Boston, they get Chara back, they get Bergeron back. They're playing fairly well. They have 52 points right now. Russ, the talk has been a third-line center to back up Bergeron and Krejci, and possibly bolstering their blue line because their blue line is young. I mean, they have McAvoy, who's been who's been in and out of the lineup.
Uh-huh.
Grzelcyk. I mean, I think, and the Bruins, they don't have as much cap space as Toronto, but they have lots of prospects. They have their first round pick. They have cap space to be able to fit. I see them making a couple moves to help them up the middle and to add a defenseman. And if they do, they're going to be as strong as ever.
Yeah, I think one move. I don't know if they're going to make a couple. Because again, they have guys. Yeah, I like they have guys that they could sort of fill in if they had to. Like Forsback or Carlson, if you had to fill him in, you could. Like I think they just will get one more. It's hard to say whether it's going to be a defenseman or not because technically, Vakanainen could fill in, and the only reason he didn't get the chance to fill in is because of the concussion. He's healthy now. He had a good World Juniors. I'm sensing they're just going to go for that one other center. That's what I think they're going to do. And so I think when you're looking around like that, like, again, maybe that's a team that wants Riley Sheehan, but I don't think Pittsburgh would trade with them because they're too good. But if you got somebody a little better than that for Boston, they'd be in good shape. So, if I could see why people thought they might go for Braden Shen, but I think it makes them too slow. I think you got to get somebody, a little faster than that.
And Peter, Columbus, the whole thing is the Panarin and Bobrovsky thing. I think they could be buyers, but it depends on whether could they be buy sell? Could they sell Panarin and try to get somebody else? I mean, or
and I think that's what they might do.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's it's funny. I haven't heard much about the Blue Jackets lately. It's sort of you got Panarin, and then Bobrovsky.
What I've heard is it's unlikely that Bob moves. That's what I've heard. I haven't heard that it's unlikely that Panarin moves.
Right,
and Panarin is going to be. That's
the only thing is Panarin only makes sense to move if it's a rental to a team in contention.
Yeah,
willing to give up something worthwhile that Columbus says, okay, we're throwing away any chance we have at winning in the playoffs. Because if you trade Panarin, I don't think they have a chance to get out of the first round. Although they're playing Pittsburgh right now, they probably don't have a chance to beat Pittsburgh anyway because they never do.
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, sorry. There they sit, third in the Metro. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. They're only 1 point up on the other guy, like on
the Islanders.
Yeah, like it's not. Give it a month. Give it a month and a half, and they might not even. Depending, all it takes is one weird thing, right? And they might be forced to be sellers.
Yeah, but I don't see them dropping out of that top 9 because
I don't think they're going to.
I don't think they're going to, but.
Yeah, they stay relatively close, then they have to either buy, sell, or buy, depending on if they keep both of them or whatever. And Montreal, Bergevin came out yesterday and said that he's probably not going to be buying in terms of short-term rentals. Right. So, that goes along with, I think they're happy with where they are right now in terms of overachieving, but Carey Price is not playing in the All-Star game, which means that whatever injury problem is going on is still going on. So that's going to be a question mark for them. The Sabres are going to be buyers because they have the cap space to do so, maybe as a short-term thing because I think they're going to save their money long-term for Skinner. But I think they're going to be buyers because they need to make the playoffs, especially in a market that has just been, sickened by them not making the playoffs. I think they're going to have to make a push, and they have assets to do so. The Islanders, Russ.
I'll tell you what. If I'm Columbus, okay, Buffalo, give me Tage Thompson and your first-round pick,
and one of your 3 first-round picks.
Yeah,
for Panarin.
Yep.
Oh, that would rock the world in Buffalo. I mean, he'll never sign here long term.
No, sign, but and of course I'm going to ask for the best of the first-round picks.
Right. Which that would be they're all going to be non-play or all going to be playoff because it's Buffalo, St. Louis, or San Jose.
Well, I'm going to just tell them.
And it's lottery protected for St. Louis, so it could be 2020 pick. And the Islanders, I mean, Russ, I think they're going to be buy sell. I think they're going to sell Eberle.
Yes.
But if they're in the race, Lou's going to make some sort of move to buy.
Yeah, I think so. I think they will be buy sell. They definitely have to get rid of Eberle, and if they were smart, they would try and figure out who of Nelson and Lee is really going to stay and really going to go. Because there's no way they're retaining both of them. But they may have to retain one of them just to see if they can make the playoffs. They're going to be one of those teams that either makes it or doesn't make it by the last day of the year or the last week of the year.
Yeah. Now, switching to the West, we'll start with Winnipeg, Peter. What do you think they're looking for, if anything, at the deadline?
I think I definitely think they're looking to solidify the left side D. Okay. That's the Myers Kulikov pair seems to work, even though and I will, look, I've been a harsh critic of Tyler Myers. Since Kulikov's come back the last 20 or so games, Myers has been playing some really good hockey. And it's really refreshing to see, and the guy deserves a lot of praise. Like, it was ugly for a while, and now it's actually very competent. And he actually came in down low from the point last game and did a wraparound. Like, it was and scored. Like, it was a nice goal and a great read by him. He's really picked up his game. So the idea of adding defense, the right side, if Buff comes back, is solidified.
Sure.
So it's the left side. So you basically have Josh Morrissey, and then it's Bufflin and Sherratt, and Sherratt's actually a right shot, but he plays left side, so he plays his offside. I think adding a veteran guy there would be ideal. The one name that comes to people's mind because it's logical, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but would be seeing if you could get Alex Edler.
Right.
Edler's not quite what he used to be.
Definitely not quite what he used to be.
No, but he's still capable.
Sure.
He's got some experience, and he's an improvement on putting Ben Sherratt there. Not that I don't like Ben Sherratt. I just think Edler's a better option.
I think it's the same as like a team who added like Hamuse a year or two ago. He's like the same kind of guy.
Yeah. The other thing that's believed is that they want to get a play driving forward. So something, Nick Ehlers is out for about 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
The Laine Little Ehlers line does not function the right way. It went bonkers when Stasny showed up.
Okay.
And that's the thing. There's something with that mix that isn't there. And then you can drop Little down. So I think they'd love to find get Paul Stasny again. I don't know if that player's out there for them.
Yeah.
It might be out there if you moved a winger and put someone else on the wing in there who's a play driver. And you know what?
I think it is, Peter. I think what it is Little's, trending down. And Stastny's a much stronger defensive player and stronger on faceoffs. And I don't think they had to worry about the other things. Little is not great defensively. That's the problem.
I'll give you a suggestion for a left D who's an expiring contract who probably wouldn't cost you a ton. The question is whether they could convince him to come for a cup drive, and that's Nicholas Kronwall. I think Kronwall would be a.
My dad got me that Chevy Vega that he knew was only going to last a year at best.
Yeah,
but all you need him for is 2 months, Russ.
I don't know if you could ride Nicholas Kronwall for 2 months, Mike.
I mean, we're talking about him we're talking about him as a 5'6". We're not talking about him in a top 4.
He's like a Model T Ford. You could bring him out like once a Sunday.
I just don't. Yeah, but you're saying left D, but he lifts as a right D. Does he play as offside?
He's a left shot.
But he plays right D.
He can play lefty. He's played it before.
I just don't know if that changes the trajectory or moves the needle.
He doesn't move around great. I mean,
no, but again, we're talking about guys with flies on them.
How about this, Mike? You take him for the Leafs. Make him your top 4 guy.
Yeah, why that's not going to happen, Russ. You think Nicholas Kronwall wants to play under Mike Babcock anymore?
Yeah,
I don't think so. Okay, now Nashville, after watching last night, I think the only thing that they in cap space might be a consideration, but I think if they can add a scorer, I think they will. I mean, I'm not saying that their offense is bad, but if they can add offense, would they be in on Duchesne? Would they be in on Eberle? Would they be on any of these guys who are pending UFAs? Could they fit Panarin in there? I don't know. But I think if they can make that deal and they're deep enough in their organization, I think that's the move that they'll make. They don't need help on defense. They don't need help in goal. It's strictly probably a winger who can score. Colorado, I heard an interesting thing from Pierre Maguire that now they've struggled recently, and apparently in a game against the Islanders a few weeks back, Barry Trotz implemented some sort of checking on that Rantanen and Landeskog line that basically shut them down. And since then, everybody has been implementing the same tactic against them. So that's going to be a key for them. I think that, their defense is good enough right now. I think they actually need depth at forward past that number one line.
Well, Alex Tanguay's on the NHL Network, right? He seems like he's in decent shape. Bring him back.
Yeah, well, his hairline isn't in decent shape,
but he probably could still skate.
Okay. I think Calgary will be a buyer, but again, I think that's the home for Jimmy.
Buyer and a seller, because like Randy points out, they're trying to shop Smith, but the problem is Mike Smith's not worth that much.
Anything,
right?
His value's done.
Right, they'd have to eat salary to let him go someplace to be a backup, and then the thing is, they probably need a backup for Rittich. What are they going to trade for Jimmy Howard? I mean, how about trading Mike Smith in a deal for Jimmy Howard?
Hang on, John Gillies is up, but he's not playing, and I don't understand what Calgary's doing.
Which means they don't trust him.
I don't know why. I have no idea why. Yeah. Nobody can understand why. But today we were all trying to figure it out. It makes no sense.
Vegas is having a ridiculous run right now. They're back up to second place in the Pacific. Peter, I don't know. I'm not sure what they need. They probably need like Pacioretty to be healthy and all their guys to be back. But they have the gift of cap space and flexibility, so they could really do anything.
Yeah, exactly. They've got gobs of cap space. They've got. Yeah, they can do whatever they want. I mean, I think if anything, they might want to add defense, but I don't know. It's just, again, last year, every time you turn on the TV or you picked up something, there's a story on Vegas. They were in because they were just doing something no one expected them to do. Now they were kind of like, and they've slowly, their last 20 games, they've been playing unbelievably. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a sec, what's going on down in Las Vegas again? And that's where it's sort of like, yeah, you look at them again, you go, what do they need? And is it just they're sort of getting back to reestablishing what they were and a little bit of change here and there? And Gerard Grant's got them moving along nicely. Maybe they'll just sit back. But, George McPhee's a guy who likes to do things. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does something, but I could probably see it on defense.
Yeah. I could see it on defense too.
Yeah, and we'll touch on San Jose and a couple of the bubble teams tomorrow. We just we need to go here, but I just think San Jose. It took him a half a season to get used to Erik Karlsson. Now all of a sudden Karlsson's playing really well. He's fitting in. Brent Burns is leading the NHL in defensive scoring. They maybe they add a forward. I don't know how much cap space that they have to work with, but they have the benefit of like Thornton's contract dropping off after this year because he's probably going to retire. So
they'll add a cheap veteran forward. That's what they will.
So okay. Great show, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.